Hello, everyone. Good day from wherever you're joining us on this course today. This is virtual learning pedagogy, and we are in week 6. It's been amazing the journey since July 18th that we've been having this. And thank you for joining us all through it. So we really appreciate you for actually coming on board. Today we have let me show you some of the speakers we have already. I have Karen, yeah,
Yeah,
then I
I
have
have
AK, then
then
Sandy is
Sandy.
here, yeah,
Yeah,
Irene, and
then
there's Karen
Karen.
FM uh, joining us today. So we have a large house, and it's going to really be a fantastic one because this is the last lap, and they are going to really come and do a whole lot of overview for us for everything that we've done. So I'm going to be bringing them on shortly. So thank you, everybody. So let me just do a bit of the information part, and we will get started. So this course is hosted by the Codarina Education and Technology Foundation in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Education in Nigeria and NICDA and Vivian Fowler Memorial School. This is an open course for anyone to actually join, and everybody is actually be able to join from everywhere in the world. Yeah, so thank you for joining. We have a Moodle shell. I'm going to put all the links up shortly that we use for the registered participants of this course, and they go through it every day. Yeah, it's been amazing what we've been seeing in the forum already, and we appreciate everyone that has actually been very, very active. So we have till July 31st for everything to complete. So if you are still joining us, you're welcome, and then we would look out to see if you're able to complete the. We've actually done. This is the 6th week. So this week we are talking about if I want to get hands on designing an online course. So get ready for that. We're going to be giving you tips and all that. Everything that you have studied all through this week is coming together. We are creating a compendium, and we're saying, yeah, you can do it. Get that online course done, and let's see what you can actually do. So that's what we are here to discuss about today. Then if you're having issues, as always, you can actually send to hello@codarina.org, hello@codarina.org. Then there's a forum at forum.codarina.net for discussions. Then you will find it very amazing to join, to subscribe to the YouTube channel of Codarina, so that there are a lot of amazing courses that they are bringing up per time that you might really want to be interested in. So quickly, because we are actually a bit behind schedule, we have to sort out some things behind. I'm going to be turning on the first video, the presentation by Karen Ferreira Mayers. So we're going to see that right now. So we'll start that in a minute.
So
once again for this last session, if I understand it well. And today I'd like to talk to you about the various components of a blended learning course. Now, since you are going to set up your own course, it would be good to have some form of checklist. And the checklist I'm using is the one that we have developed at the Institute of Distance Education here in Eswatini. But it is adapted largely from the Commonwealth of Learning blended course learnability evaluation checklist, also from the Regional Community of Practice Quality Assurance Guidelines in Open and Distance Learning, another document from 2019, and a little influence was from the online blended learning course quality checklist, which was prepared by Afsaneh Sharif. So in my short presentation today, I'm going to talk to you about the various components. They are 6 in number, but perhaps you can add others. If we can talk about that at the end of the presentation. Course overview and introduction, course goals and learning objectives or learning outcomes, depending on how you want to call them. Assessment, course materials, learner engagement, learner support services, or rather learner support resources. Okay, when it comes to course overview and introduction, you should check that you have a short and clear description or a video about the blended course and that this is available online. You need to explain to your learner what are the various components of your course, and you need to state what is the prerequisite knowledge and what are the skills they should have before starting the course. That also goes for the technical skills. They must be clearly stated, and a link must be provided to the course outline. Course schedule with the topics, assignments, and due dates is another important information that must be given from the onset. Still on the course overview and introduction, you should explain what your expectations are about all the different types of assessment. You should talk about netiquette. Remember, we talked about it briefly in the online discussions, in the chat, in the email, any other type of communication that is available to your learners must be stated clearly. There must also be a link to the course or institutional policies. We talked about institutional policies last week. So remind yourself about perhaps an open educational resources policy or an information and communication technology policy or any other policy that is linked to your course. You should link it. And there should be a little introduction or an icebreaker activity for your learners so that an online community can be formed. Second component is the course goals and the learning outcomes or objectives. So you must make sure that there's clear alignment between your goals and your objectives, that your objectives or your outcomes are described in terms of what your learner will be able to do when he's finished or when she's finished with the course. And then the various blends, what will be done online, what will be done in a face-to-face setting. And these must all be aligned to your learning objectives. And remember, we've talked about Bloom's taxonomy, so that's also a very useful list to have handy when you are preparing your course. Then with regard to assessment, again, we have to have that alignment. There should be various opportunities for self-assessment and practice. And it must be on an ongoing basis. So not only summative assessment, but a lot of formative assessment during the week, during the semester, during the time when you are working with your students. You must have a structure where you can give your students feedback and make sure that you have clear instructions. Your assessment activities must cover a range of cognitive domains. And again, Bloom's taxonomy is a useful list to look at. Then with regard to course materials, you must make sure that all supplementary materials for the face-to-face lectures are provided in your learning management system, in our case in Moodle. Perhaps you want to present these, well, no, you should present them in a consistent and logical structure and layout. So make sure that it's all well structured and presented without errors. I think that's a major thing when it comes to quality assurance. We often still find courses with grammatical errors, language errors, or even, factual errors. So let's make sure that we have none of those. With the course material still, your content should use relevant, accurate, and up-to-date examples. If you have open educational resources that you have used, you must make sure that they are attributed clearly. And if you have any synchronous sessions, you must record them and keep them available for your learners so that they can go back to them time and time again. With regard to learner engagement, then, there are the discussion forums that promote interaction. It must be aligned to your learning outcomes. Everything must be clearly articulated. Online and classroom activities must be distinguished clearly, and your students must easily find where the communication or activity tools are. The forums, the wiki, the blogs, anything that you are using must be clearly indicated and easy to find for your learner so that he or she can engage fully. The last component is the learner support resources, technical support. Where must your student go if they have issues? Academic support systems, if there are library services, if there is peer tutoring, perhaps there's a program coordinator or a departmental head. Those are all, that is all information that must be clearly shared. Your course instructions must answer basic questions related to anything they need to do within your course. And there must be guidelines or links to resources on how a student can do well in an online or a blended environment. Because remember, this is something that is quite new to our learners too, so we need to guide them as much as possible. Finally, contact information for your teachers, your lecturers, your instructors, your tutors, your mentors, all that has to be easily found by your learners. This is where I end for today. I would like to thank you once again for your attention and remind you that if there's any questions, you can always get in touch with me. And I wish you well in the rest of your virtual learning pedagogy course. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so thank you very much, uh, Karen, for that very good overview. We appreciate the fact that you were able to start up with us with this very fine presentation. So I'm going to be bringing all my presenters up on the screen right now. So welcome. Yes, so okay, I still have Sandy at the backstage. All right. So I have Karen, Karen Jackson, of course. I have AK, then I have Sandy, then I have Irene, then I have Karen Ferreira Mayers too. So they will be doing justice to the presentation. So just a minute, I'm going to bring up the screen for their presentation. Just okay. So Karen, you can actually start up. So
okay.
Exactly.
All right. Welcome everyone to the summary week. So this is our week that we talk about what we've learned and the expectations. And thank you, Karen FM, for your thorough summary of the checklist of what teachers need to look at when they are creating their coursework. So we have tried to guide you week by week into allowing and learning what are the important components and what are just some of the possible things that you can include in your online courses. And as we this particular slide deck is just basically like you would keep a notebook. So week 1 has the link to the video class that we've been doing on Saturdays. And then the next is a kind of a few high points. And it tells you what we covered and what might be interesting to you. So this is my summary, but and not mine, but I'm going to talk about week 1, and then the other presenters are going to talk about the weeks that they presented because they're passionate about their subject areas. So for week 1, we discussed just the possibilities of what an online course is and what it should contain, and why we need to teach virtually and how important that is. And the instructors were Dr. Jane Moore and Dr. Jenny Heyman, and they gave several resources, including the Merlot database of lessons for you, and also Online Learning Consortium's guide for K-12 education. So all these resources are free, and I'm not going to read the list to you, but these are important resources that are international. So wherever you are, you can include these resources in your search for what goes into your online course. All these things are accessible to you wherever you are. And that's mainly what we're trying to bring across to you, is that how important it is now to embrace online learning. And we just really encourage you and thank you for considering and attempting and creating this online course. And the things that we've shared with you will make this dynamic and engaging for your students. And that's the key, to get them hooked on learning and hooked on finding out knowledge for themselves. And here are so many resources that we've discussed over the weeks. So that's really all I wanted to say for week 1, is it was really a great overview on the topic of online learning. And we're all happy to answer any questions you have. We're all monitoring the chat. So thank you very much. And that's what I was going to say.
So week 2, looking back and reflecting on it, our awesome team in week 2 threw a lot of resources at you. It may have been a little too much to digest if you tried it all, but the idea was to also give you an element of choice. And week 2 was all about learning objects. Is there a next slide?
Yeah.
Awesome. So in week 2, we've had Dr. Jane Moore, we've got me, AK, Dr. Ishan, and Dr. Say, bringing together a lot of different elements. We talked about Merlot. Merlot is an important resource, which is why it was included both in week 1 and week 2. We talked about universal design for learning, which ensures that we keep all learners in mind as we design our learning interventions. I'm getting a bit of echo here. There we go. Thank you. We talked about setting our learning goals and learning objectives, which Dr. Karen talked about in her presentation as well. We talked about different methods of creating virtual reality and augmented reality. And finally, putting it all together and creating our learning objects. So one of the things that I've learned from trial and error over the years is that you're definitely not going to get it 100% right on the first try. But if you keep these ingredients in mind, and you enter the process with the idea that you're going to iterate and you're going to become better as you practice more and as you develop it, I think you have the recipe for success. So that was a quick overview of week 2. And when I hand off the baton to week 3, I believe that's Sandy.
Hi. Yeah, so week 3, it was all about learning or teaching about different Google apps or different apps platforms you could have in your teaching. So there was myself, there was Dr. Karen Jackson, and there was also Dr. Olowokemi. The idea was I spoke about different apps, Google Drive, looked at how to do Google Slides, Google Docs, and how you could share those documents with your students, and then how you could be interactive with them. The others also, Karen brought in Flipgrid, she Jamboard, so engaging your students interactively as well. This way, you know that it's not one-sided. And then the other one was the Microsoft. So we're not being restricted to just one platform. We can use others as well. And having Microsoft 365, the facilities and the apps they have. So the idea, what we had in week 3, is now communicating with the students, having a two-way process going. And we go on to week 4.
Thank you. So week 4, we were doing facilitation. We were thinking and taking you through facilitating online learning and the online learner. And in this week, we had Dr. Karen Ferreira Myers. We had Dr. Jenny Heyman. We had Dr. Oluwakemi. I think she was there, yes. And myself. We took you through how to decide when to teach and when to facilitate. Facilitation is making people's life a little easier and guiding them on what they want to do. So there's a lot of resources that we shared in the LMS. We shared in Moodle from Karen, who also still that time did a video. There are short videos that are full of good information. So, and then Jenny talked about encouraging and supporting online learning. And it was really just taking you through some of the steps that you need to do when you are supporting a learner, and when to jump in, when to, figure out what kind of support your learner needs. Then I touched on online conflict and online violence and provided you with a presentation that we worked on together. And I must say you did a great job. We also put the same questions or the same topics in forum. So you have 2 ways of working on the same thing. So I hope you learned something in that week. And now I'm handing over to Karen FM, as we are calling her, for week 5. Over to you, Karen.
Hi, and that brings us to week 5. Now, week 5 is just last week, so I'm sure it's still quite fresh in your mind. Remember, we looked mostly at policy. The idea was to think about the broader environment, the broader context in which we are developing our courses. So we had Dr. Ishan talking about virtual reality and how to fit that in, how to design it in our courses. I thought that was extremely interesting and thought-provoking. And then we had Dr. Seyi, who was giving us an example of how in a Nigerian university in Ibadan, they had come about setting up and managing their online and blended courses based on policy. Because policy, as you remember, I also spoke about policy. Policy is what drives everything. So we can have policies at a national level, and then we can have them at an institutional level. So it's very important for you to know whether you have a policy or not. If you don't, it would be good to be in a team to get those policies going. and then everything you do derives from the policy. And the policy is always closely linked to our context. So I think that's what we did in week 5. And I'm thinking that now, after having gone through week 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you have so many new skills, so much new knowledge, and probably a very positive attitude. Now you can put it all together and work on your own courses. And we are really looking forward to seeing what comes out of all those thought processes.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a lovely overview by everybody I have here, and I'm really excited that we have been able to give like a run through the all the presentations and all the topics that we've actually gone through from week 1. Now, this is to entertain your questions, then to kind of like give an outlook to what you're supposed to do this week. I'll start from AK. What do you think how do you think the learners here should start to design their course, having gone through all of this? Can you quickly give us in a brief?
What I would say is, think about what course you want to teach or what you're going to be putting online. 2, sorry, I didn't realize I was creating a recipe. It just came in my mind. But think about your course, then think about where it's going to be. So maybe there's a policy that your school says we're using Moodle. So if your school is using Moodle, then you go to Moodle. If your school is using Google Classroom, you use Google Classroom or any other platform. There's a lot of them, right? And then think about everything that we've done up to now and start to design your course. So this week should be really taking all those little blocks together and putting them together and starting to test things out. And you bring in us and you bring in your fellow cohort mates in this cohort to get some peer feedback. So as you're designing, other people can be giving you advice and sort of giving you feedback. So this week for me is really putting it all together and starting to prepare.
Yep.
Should I pass on the baton to somebody else?
Sorry, I muted my mic. I was actually talking anyway. So putting it all together, Dr. Karen Jackson, I wanted to say something about what it means. You've actually designed online courses before now. Now, from what AK talked about, what are the intricacies that the learners should actually look forward to based on and couple with what they've actually learned in this course?
What's important when you begin planning is, number one, build. I like to build like you're building a class, like you're building a group together. So you want to have interactivity so that you get to know your learners. So they focus on who and have, in design, they call it building empathy. So focus in on who is going to be learning from you. And then you kind of back up from there. Well, how can I reach that student with the tools that I have, according to my policy, according to my teammates, according to everyone's ability to access? So then you back up one more step and you design your lessons to be facilitated by the tools that you have to meet the needs. So then you think about, well, what are my requirements as far as assessment? Keeping all these other things in your mind, you need to have input from all of those things, how you're going to meet your student, how you're going to teach them, and then get feedback from them or assess them. if they've learned what you want them to learn. So a lot depends on the tools that you have at hand and how you devise a way to get your content to them. So if you like some of the tools that we showed you, if you want to do the VR and AR, and start investigating that, and then insert some of that. But remember, don't try it all at once, but try one or two new things, and then get really good at that, and then add on more new, so that you're not adding a whole bunch of stuff and getting overwhelmed. We don't want you to be overwhelmed, because your students will pick up on that and they'll feel overwhelmed as well. So focus on your students, look at the tools you have, and then somewhere in there, you're going to have content that you have to teach them. And then just start putting it together. And as AK was saying, iterate. Iterate is just a fancy word for change. Change things that are not working, and be open with your students that you're learning this too, and they'll feel a little more comfortable trying new stuff when they see you trying new things. That's what I try to think about when I start an online course.
Wow, that's loaded. So please, okay, someone just asked the question right now. That's a very good one from Dr. Karen Jackson. Oluwatobiloba asked that, how effective can an experimental lessons be taught online? And I think that question is talking about simulations and a whole lot of things that you could actually do there, a whole lot of affordances. So Sandy, can you pull in there to tell us something about what it means to, because part of that is they are assessing those things that you give, those contents that you give to the learners. Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, I think that if it's a one-way thing, if the facilitator is constantly talking, you will lose the students.
Yeah.
So, engage them. Like we gave this ideas of Jamboard, Flipgrid. There's many other resources out there. Make it interactive. Get them to talk. I know you can lose students within 45 minutes to an hour. And also, if we're thinking about you as a facilitator, the students sitting there and just teaching for hours, it can do you no good and them no good physically. So it's good to move around as well. So I would say about 40 minutes and then a 10-minute break, move around and maybe go back online again. But everyone is different. But I wouldn't say more than 50 minutes. I think that is way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the aspect of doing experimental work also online means that it has to be collaborative. Trying to group the learners together is very, very key to get them to do stuff. What is so common and commonplace is maybe they write programming languages together. But in this case right now, it's not just about computer science, IT, or whatever. Now, from the English language learning to social studies and all that, everything can actually require them to collaborate more now. And how do you tend to fuse that up? Because either it's experimental in terms of the natural sciences to the humanities and all that. One of the key things is that trying to get them to work together could actually really make a fuse for that and make things really work properly. And I think one of the affordances of online learning is actually that ability for them to collaborate more, even on the platform, and then giving them something to do together for them to be able to kind of like put those things together. So on that, I'll flip to Irene, and I love the Mudometer thing, because when we start to talk about collaboration, we start to talk about learners starting to relate with themselves, and the relational aspect too is very, very key as much as the material, the content that you're pushing to them. So Irene, over to you. How do you help us out with that?
That for me, when I'm thinking about the learners, the people that are in a course or anywhere that I facilitate, I think about keeping it simple. Number one, if you complicate your things, people lose interest or find it too complicated and they start falling out. The other thing is you must be human first. You must remember to be human first. What should I do in this situation? Can I deal with it? What am I going through? Especially now with COVID-19, everybody is having different effects from it. So it is important to figure out or to find out what your learners are going through, and in a good way. You don't wait until someone has not delivered for 3 weeks, then you follow up on them. You should follow up on them a little earlier than that. So be human, check on how they are doing, keep it simple. The other thing is to check the connectivity. Are people connected? What kind of things are you using there? What kind of things are you telling them to use? What tools are you giving them to use? Are they possible in their settings? So that for me is very important. Yeah, John.
Yeah, so I'm seeing some of the comments from our facilitators, and it's really, really fantastic. So yeah, the learners, we've always been talking about the things to be learner centered, and how do we kind of like jog that? And that's very, very important for the facilitator to make sure that it gets around the learners effectively. And yes, I'm still going to come back across to every one of us because I think I still have a couple of more time. So while we expect that we all let every participant here send in their questions right now, we're looking out for your questions. Now, Karen Ferreira Meyers, you said to have actually done a whole lot of things about the policy angle, and I appreciate the fact that you came up with those things that we did in week 5, very, very good, and with Dr. Shea and all that. Now, what would you say about a scenario in which the teacher has the ideas and the school does not really have the policy currently to get it on? So what would you advise and what would you say could be a roadmap for such a teacher? Karen FM? Okay, yeah, she's still on. Okay, maybe move the sound.
I'm having trouble hearing you. The connection
sorry.
is quite bad again today. What I wanted to say, but if you write down the question, I will look at it just now. But what I wanted to say is that for me, 2 important points on all this idea of blended learning and online learning is teamwork. Teamwork in the facilitators group and teamwork within the learners group. And the second point I want to stress is the idea that we all come with knowledge and skills, and that we need to go about from a socio-constructivism point of view, where we all construct things we do together. I hope that came through clearly, but I will write it in the chat room as well.
Okay, yeah. Karen FM, yeah, I'm trying to put the question across to you also now, because it's about policy and asking how do a teacher that has gone through this course, for instance, and already got what policy is, push it across to the school and make a design for that. So, but you're going to get the question shortly. So now, I think, let me check the chat. Yeah, I think that we last week we talked about so I'm going to go to Karen Jackson now. Never mind me, I'm all for my currents. Yeah, so yeah, we were talking about assessment, and last week we were talking about proctoring, online proctoring. Yeah, and I remember we talked about okay, there could be multiple choice questions, there could be all kinds of other questions. Now, can you talk a bit more about that? That how can assessment, okay, from formative to summative, be tweaked to make sure that the learner is not going to be tempted to be going on to Google it out, but try to follow what has actually been learned and to be able to answer a question, and it could actually be verified for learning. Karen.
I think the reaction or reflection type question is a little bit more difficult to fake. Don't ask questions that are simplistic. If it have your learner do some processing with the information, and then share their knowledge with you, so that you can they're just kind of a little more difficult, not a higher level questioning, I guess is what I'm trying to say, so that they can't just look up an answer of 5 + 3, but how do they feel? What is their responses? Have they had an experience with the concept before, or can they find other examples of a certain kind of phenomenon in nature, and then why it applies to their lesson? Why questions take a little more processing than just kind of what questions. That's what I would recommend, and maybe some other of my colleagues have suggestions. But I think, make your questions processing kinds of questions during assessments.
Okay, so Irene, what would you say about that?
Sorry, what was the
Yeah,
question?
it's about assessments.
I was enjoying what.
Exactly. So
Assessments.
how do
You see,
how do the teacher make the assessment more like a responsive type, and not just like something that the learners will just Google it while they are online, and then they just respond to the question?
I totally agree with what Karen said, because if you make the question Googleable, then it will be Googled, So it is important to actually find ways of putting up the questions or the tasks in a way that people write from their hearts, people write from their understanding, people write from what they know personally. And then they can go and say, and these are the other references that I've found out, Mm-hmm. And of course, we need to always keep on reminding them to quote anything that they find, that they share, that they are getting from the internet. They must remember to quote. Otherwise, they'll give in their paper, and it's all, it cannot be accepted because it's been, it's been copied from the internet. And of course, they need to know that there are tools now that can tell that you've copied everything from the internet. So it's important to learn how to ask those questions. Back to you, John.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'll see something on the chat about connectivity. And I'll quickly say this. I did a project last year to this year, and we actually went into different areas for connectivity, and what we realized is that we had to break the strategy. depending on what we have as a prevailing situation in that area, we kind of like decide on what to do. So it was more like flexible. So flexibility is very, very important if you're deploying either online or blended. Now we've talked about online and blended in this. Remember that online, going fully online is one thing. Doing blended is another, and trying to, and in most cases for schools right now, I know there's going to be a lot of blended approach to things. So now your flexibility is very, very important in whatever you're doing right now to deploy an online class or a blended class. So if you're thinking of that in terms of the assessment also, how do you don't give like what my facilitator said, you don't give a straight answer question like multiple choice and all that. Gamifying your learning process is very, very important too. And I think, well, there are a whole lot of things that we could actually touch on, but we that's part of it. So I'm going to yeah, I'm looking at what we are posting on the platform, and AK is talking about authentic assessments. How it keeps the learners fresh. And yeah, AK, I'm going to come back to you. What you seem to kind of like have the old school system that you could actually bring into play on this. So let us know something about what you think about assessments and how it could actually be deployed better.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about is so-called authentic assessments. So instead of doing something like a multiple choice test or something where there's only one answer and every student will have to answer question one in a specific way, you can have authentic assessments where learners can be out in their surroundings, the real world. School is still real world, but we don't consider it the real world. So if you have a question where students have to go find an example of something and then explain why it's an example of a theory or something in action. So if you're teaching physics, if you want to, let's say, have the difference between velocity and acceleration, students can go out and see examples of stuff happening in the world and explain it in terms of physics and why something is happening the way it's happening. Or in the visual arts, for example, if you're looking at accessibility or learning, you can snap a photo of, let's say, an elevator or an on-ramp or a sidewalk that doesn't have space for people to walk on, and give examples of how it's either is accessible or not accessible. So giving learners the opportunity to go and be inquisitive about the world that they live in and tie those theories that they're learning in class with what they see in real life. And in terms of kicking it old school, it reminds me of the days when bandwidth was an issue at home as well. And many training organizations used to send you a CD with all the materials for the workshop that you were taking. And the things that were low bandwidth, like the chats and the discussions and some of the text stuff, was available through online means, but all the heavy stuff was offloaded to a CD-ROM, or nowadays it would be a USB drive. So you could have a loading station where learners come once a week or so and then download the materials for next week so that they don't have to use up their bandwidth, which can be really expensive. A little less flexibility that way, but at the very least, you're keeping those constraints in mind. You don't want to bankrupt the students. You want to make it as accessible as possible, both in terms of content and also money-wise. Back to you, John.
Yeah, that's pretty very nice from the perspective you've actually come up with. And what I didn't say about what we did last year was that we actually made flash drives of all the content. It was actually a CS first curriculum that we were doing, and it was based on scratch. So it involves like 8 weeks of videos, learning, and all that. So what we did was that we put all the files, the information on a flash drive, and we made it available in those schools so that they could copy it on all their local systems. So now that's one very important thing that you have to look at as an educator right now. If you've got systems in your school, or you wanted to connect with the learners at home, you can actually pre-record. And I think we're talking about pre-recording things before now. Pre-record your lessons, put it. There are a whole lot of platforms that you can actually use to record now that are free. Thanks for Karen Ferreira Mayers. I knew about Bandicam. So now there are a lot of options. Zoom can actually record to like for 40 minutes. That's for free. Now you can do the recording, put it on the flash drive, and it can actually be shared to your students. And they could bring in their own flash drives as well to copy that. So with that, instead of thinking of video on over their internet, then that's going to be eliminated, and it's going to eliminate what. So if you have pre-recordings of your class and you share it with your students, I think it's going to cut it tremendously the cost. And then there are also other affordances that are created. I think Sandy can actually talk about, maybe for example, the offline Google Docs that could make things easily accessible. Sandy, can you say something about that?
Yeah, one of the things, and I haven't played with other platforms, they may have it too, so I want to make that clear. Exactly. But with Google, one of the things you can do is make everything offline, work on the documents, and then when there is enough data, or there is internet connectivity, or when it is cheaper, you can connect and everything syncs together. And I think that is a really useful tool to have. Especially, I mean, it doesn't matter where you live, we'll always have those glitches.
Sure.
It's happened to us, all of us, right?
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. So now on the home drive, I'm going to take just one comment from all our facilitators and to encourage the learner to actually do it. We've actually been involved in all of this all through, and it's actually no more rocket science for you. So you are in it for the good. So just start somewhere and make sure that you do something really, really good. So I'm going to start from Dr. Karen Jackson. So what's the last words here?
Last word is just go ahead and try it. Don't be afraid of failure, because that's when you will learn the most. Just do it.
All right. So Irene?
There is a lot of information that we've shared with you. Don't feel overwhelmed. Do one thing at a time, and always make sure that you ask. Always ask. If you're stuck, always ask, instead of doing things that you repeat all over again.
All right. That's a very good one. Sandy, say something.
Yeah, it's same. We used the word before, iteration. I can say the same thing. Don't feel like there is a burden on you. You know, just it's preparation. And as facilitators, we are used to preparing, and it's just facilitate or preparing now in a different way.
That's very important. So Karen Ferreira Mayers, last word? Or maybe the network right now. So that's one of the challenges. Yeah. So AK.
What I would say is find a community, or if you're already a member of a community, nurture those connections, because they are also a good support group. So you don't have to do this alone. Your community is there to help you, either in small or big ways, but they're always there. So stay connected to the people who can encourage you, who can give you strength, and who can also give you honest feedback. People you can learn from, and people you can teach something to. We're all in this together.
Yeah, that's a very important one. The communities. Now, for educators right now, you can't actually go it all alone. It's not something that you should even try to attempt. All of these things that we did today have been that we have been part of one community or the other, and that's why we have been able to bring you a very fruitful discussion in course, from the Google community to the open education community to the Microsoft community, name it. We've gotten people together from different communities, education communities, and that is actually what has made, that has really enriched this course. You stand a lot to benefit when you're part of one or two or three of the communities. It doesn't get too much. It's a learning thing. And when you understand that it's a lifelong learning process that we are involved in right now, because when we have this kind of online, we are actually moving to the online platform and doing things online. Now, that means that there is going to be iteration, changes. We have to consider a whole lot of things, flexibility, pivoting regularly. So it doesn't stay the same again. So like you don't think of you seeing yourself within the four-wall place again. Think of learning as in the world, it's enveloped in the world, and that means that there are a whole lot of things that you come about with every day. Favor asked about a question about a PowerPoint presentation that can be shared to the, yeah, PowerPoint can actually be shared in different formats. There's PowerPoint, there's Google Slides and all that. So, and all that can actually be easily pushed across for you on different platforms. So a whole lot of applications right now are multi-platform, multi-dimensional. So you could actually see things. And if you want to keep it really constant, maybe you kind of think of doing something on a PDF so that it will be across all platforms at the same time. You know, so all of that, the technology aspect of it, but not the most important thing that you need to keep learning and keep developing, because it's very, very important. There will be a whole lot of things that will be unfolding as we go on. A lot of things has actually happened within this pandemic period as well. So that's the situation. So before we round off today, please note this. It's very, very important. Where the learning material, how you're going to push your class and what you design this week, you're going to have it before the end of the day. So look up to the platform, you're going to see it on the Moodle shell. So, and then I sent an email across to everybody today. I'll still send an additional email because there's going to be an evaluation form that we are required to fill. And I know, yeah, after you've completed all this, like every average student, they will think of, oh yeah, I'm going to get certified. Yeah, you're going to get certified on this course too as well. So now we're going to tell you what are the things that that are going to, you need to have already in your portfolio for us to for your certificate to be received, and that includes the fact that you have to design your course and we have to see it. It has to be peer reviewed by your colleague too as well. So stay linked to the Moodle shell. There's going to be a whole lot of updates, and you're going to get some emails from your inbox. if you're not getting our emails, make sure that you check your junk or your spam folder. You're going to see all of that there. And yes, so interestingly, we're rounding off the live sessions today, and that means that yeah, it's going to be yes, maybe in another kind of course like this that you're going to see us, but we're really appreciative of you joining this course, and all the facilitators. Now, it's not all of them that are here right now, but I'm excited that like 5 are here already today. They have been, they have seen how you've worked, and they've been excited about your contributions all along, and they find it really, really amazing to take this kind of course with you. And guess what? They've all done it absolutely free. It's pro bono, and I believe that you should be thankful by sending something across to an information and say, yeah, thank you, a facilitator. So we really appreciate them for giving of their time and their expertise to be able to do this wonderful and amazing course. It's been a learning experience for every one of us. I can actually say that. So thank you for you joining us back home. Thank you, all our facilitators, everyone that is not here right now. We really appreciate you. You've done really fantastic. I'll mention the names of those ones that are not here right now. Jane Moore, Jenny Aman, Sheyi Oshwade, Oluwakemi Oluyola, Ishan, Abewa Dena, and yeah, it's been awesome time. I really appreciate everyone that really contributed to the success of this. So now the course is not closed yet. We still have all through this week till August 31st for you to complete every requirement for you to get your certificate. So thank you very much for the time, and you will be hearing from us on the platform on the Moodle Shell. Thank you so much, and bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.